This is Morgan J. Ingram here on the SDR Chronicles, host here, bringing you guys guests to provide more knowledge and more insight on the sales development field and how we can do better. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Jim, who has been working in the sales profession for quite a while now. He's a sales trainer out of Indianapolis. Great guy to know. We actually met face-to-face finally at Rainmaker. So it was good to kind of make that face-to-face connection over a multitude of talking through email and through Twitter. So I'm going to let him introduce himself more before we go into the topic of the day of how to masterfully handle objections and to get through them as an SDR.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Morgan. And it was great to meet you in Atlanta. And like I said, match up that online personality with the offline personality, which was the exact same. So Jim Brown, I've been in sales for, almost 15 years now. Doesn't seem possible, but to me, it's the best profession in the world. I've been very fortunate to help two companies go from $1 million to $10 million in revenue. I really like that early level startup scene. And then, after I saw all that, I flipped the script and I actually went and raised about $1 million in venture capital myself. And I ran that one into the ground. So I've been on both sides of this, right? The skyrocketing success as well as, almost bankruptcy.
Cool. Awesome. So you're going to bring some great perspectives today. So let's just hop into it. Objections. Why are you excited about this topic?
Well, look, everybody that you're selling to has them, right? And I think that for most salespeople, they think they have to have some magical answer to overcome all these different objections. But the thing is, to me, everybody who says, all the objections come at the end. Well, here comes the budget, here comes the decision, here comes the board, blah, 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 blah. All those objections were known at the very beginning. You just didn't have the courage to ask them, right? You didn't get them out on the table. And so that's what it just gets me really jazzed up and excited about.
Awesome. So from an SDR standpoint, how can we as SDR, the SDR community, get in front of these objections before they even happen?
Right. So if you've been calling for 1 week, right, you have heard at least 20 of these objections, right? So what are they? Get them out and have 2 or 3 different plays that you could run for every single one of those, right? So what are some of the big objections, Morgan, that you've heard?
This isn't the time right now. Can you reach back out to me in Q4, Jim?
Yeah. So right there with that one, I'd be like, I'd be happy to reach out to you in Q4. When I do that, what were you hoping to talk about then?
I just really busy right now. I just don't have time to talk.
Yeah, I totally understand. No one does. But if I were to show you a solution that could X, Y, or Z, you probably wouldn't want to hear about that, would you?
Yeah, probably.
What do you mean? Right. And so all of a sudden, I'm just asking you questions. It's getting you at a level that we're human to human, right? We have equal business stature. And look, I'm not trying to trick you or anything along those lines. I just want to be able to have that conversation with you.
Right. And I like the way you floated to it, because that's kind of how I handle objections. I ask more questions on top of the answer that you have and basically make you see the light. Because I think that as humans, we have an auto trigger, right? So what that means is that, if someone calls me and they're like, hey, do you want to see a demo? Probably really not. If you've got value, I really don't care. Like, it could be awesome what you probably are selling, but I just don't care. So my auto response is, no, I'm not interested. But if you ask more questions and actually challenge it, which most people don't do, then that's what gets you the results. So kind of in lieu in that question, why don't people just do what you just did?
Well, because they don't know how, right? They're not taught that kind of stuff. And this is the biggest thing for me. And this is why I became a sales trainer. So like I said, I've had some great success as a salesperson. And I was running a sales for a company called Compendium. In 2013, we were acquired by Oracle. And so I went from being the sales leader to one of, I think, 4,000 salespeople, right? Going back to being a bag quota carrying, salesperson. Yeah. I was fine with that, but all of a sudden I was lost in this huge ecosystem. But the one thing that Oracle had that I had never seen before was what they called Oracle University. And literally, as they bring new people in, they spend 6 months preparing them to be salespeople at Oracle. It's half product training and half sales training. And that doesn't happen in our world anymore, right? You get some on-the-job training, but when you started Terminus, you're probably picking up the phone by week 2.
Yeah.
What in the world, right? And I love that. I love the fact that you're just going to jump in and get after it, but most people don't know what to do, right? So going back to objection handling as well, the first thing they're taught is all about their product. So now the only thing they know how to talk about is their product.
Yeah.
And it's an intellectual conversation, but here's the thing. People don't buy intellectually. They buy emotionally. You have to tie the things that you do to the pain that they feel on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis, right? So that's why they're not doing it out of the gate.
Yeah, and that's a great point. So does that fall on the SDR needs to go learn objections, or does that fall on leadership to provide the knowledge on the upfront so that rep can be prepared?
Well, look, you and I have had this conversation before. You can't rely on anyone for anything in today's world, right? The first thing is you got to be motivated to go out and get it yourself, right? However, your leadership should know some of this stuff that's coming down the pipe before you get there. So one of the things, I work with a ton of sales leaders and sales reps, and the best leaders that I know, Jenny Vance is one of them. She's the SVP of sales at a company called Perk. She has this, she relates sales or training of sales onboarding to stepping in a batter's box in baseball, right? If you want to train a good hitter, the first thing you're going to do is friendly pitching, right? And you're only going to throw them fastballs. So fastball, 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 fastball. That way they know how to get comfortable with the grip, the stance, the swing, etc. Once they get comfortable with that, now you throw them a curveball, but it's still a friendly curveball, right? So now they're able to handle that before they ever step into the batter's box of an actual live game with an opposing pitcher. That's the kind of stuff that we have to be able to train as sales leaders to our new reps, right? So, hey, you're probably going to get this. How would you answer that? Okay, great. Here's how I might answer that. Now let's actually role play it, right? So you know what you're going to get. You deliver back the objection handling to me. I'm going to tell you what you're going to get over here. You handle that one back to me. Then we start to advance. Say, okay, now you're still in the friendly batter's box, but now you don't know what pitch is coming, but you got to be able to respond to me. So it's a little bit of both. You as a new person, you can't rely on people. You've got to go out and get it yourself, but you should have to get sales leadership to have some of this for you.
Yeah, and I think once you have the knowledge, let's talk about the execution piece, because I think that you could have like, oh, I have all these objections I can overcome now, but doesn't it more so come in the process of time, and doesn't it something you have to become comfortable with? Because most people aren't comfortable pushing back in general. So how do you even get over that?
Yeah, learning how to ask questions, right? So one of the things you've said to me before when we talked live is one of the challenges you had early, and maybe you still do, is your inability to listen, right? Not most people, everybody was born with 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? So we need to listen twice as much as we talk. So when a prospect is giving you an objection, try to listen and understand what they're actually saying, right? I'm gonna use us as humans as an example here. So you go into a shoe store, you go into the Finish Line or Foot Locker, wherever it is you buy your shoes, right? You walk in, a sales clerk comes up to you. What's the first thing they say?
How can I help you?
And you reply,
I'm just looking.
Every single time, right? But you're lying. You went into the store to buy shoes. So
yeah, it's an innate response.
It's an innate response. But if you're going to do that, right, as a salesperson yourself, what do you think every single prospect is doing to you, right? They're lying, right? So I talk about the buyer system. Buyers don't know how to buy, right? So if you don't have a system yourself, you have to adopt that buyer system. And like I said, they don't know how to buy. I call it lie, steal, lie, hide. First, they lie to you, tell you they're just looking, right? Then they steal from you. They take all your good information, right? Then they lie to you again and says, oh, you know what, Morgan, you are really close to getting this deal. If you just give me a case study, or you give me a custom demo, or you give me a use case, right? And then once you give them all that, then they go hide. That's when you get perpetual access to their voicemail. That's when you start getting those emails. It's like, hey, just checking in, just following up for the 37th time, right? All that kind of stuff. But that's the thing. It's like you have to be able to get that in your own system and go through it.
Yeah, and I think that's super important. So we talked about the phone, email. So when you get objections through email, how do you handle that? Do you call that person right away? Do you have an email response that is already ready? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I think the best salespeople know how to transition an email to a phone call, right? It's very important because certain objections that are coming through email, those are best suited to be handled by a phone call. So I definitely call now. If I can't get them on the phone, because that's a chance, right? I'm going to send a response that says, hey, Morgan, I would love to give you the answer to that, but I'm trying to better understand what is it you're actually looking for, right? So if they ask for a case study or a referral or like I said, a custom demo, says, let's pretend I did that. And you get exactly what you're looking for out of it. What happens next? Right? And you're just putting it right back on them the whole time. And so it literally is just about questioning. And I know it's something that you do quite well. And it's just following up with more questions, right? So I literally could take, in my opinion, any product, right, and go out there and run an initial call with just questions. Right now, I'm going to have to do a little bit of research, probably 5-10 minutes worth of research to understand a few talking points. But other than that, I'm just going to go ask questions. I don't have to know anything about your product. I don't have to have ever logged into your product. I don't have to have seen a demo of your product, but I can have a business conversation about a prospect's pain just by asking questions.
And I think that's huge, because I think a lot of people they handle objections by not asking questions, but providing too much value. And I feel like that's something that actually hinders people when they try to overcome objections. So I actually agree with you that questions are important. So can you talk about how providing too much value in objection actually can hinder you?
Well, I go back to what I said earlier, right? It's that people don't buy intellectually.
Right.
They buy emotionally. So give me an example at Terminus. What are some of the value props that you have that you would state to a prospective buyer?
I would say that, we can proactively get in front of the key stakeholders without them ever having to come to your website.
Gotcha. So getting in front of the key stakeholders without ever them having to come to your website. So I'm going to call you up, Morgan. Hey, Jim Brown. Morgan, I don't know if this would make any sense to you. You're probably not trying to get in front of any key stakeholders at your key accounts, are you?
I actually am.
What do you mean?
So all I'm trying to do is, get in front of my key stakeholders. I'm trying to basically turn them into new net business for us, and my SDR team's trying to get after them, but we really aren't getting much traction.
Well, but all these people are just coming to your site, aren't they?
Some of them are. Some people we can't get in front of.
Gotcha. So if I could show you a way to get in front of those key stakeholders that don't ever come to your site, that's probably not something you'd be interested in seeing, is it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
If I were able to do that, what could it do to your business?
It would definitely increase demo flow. Increasing demo flow would create new opportunities for our account executives to close business.
But you probably have plenty of opportunity right now in your current pipeline.
We have them, but we need to accelerate it.
What does accelerate mean? How much?
Accelerate, I would say, 2 times. We just have a lot of pipeline right now that's clouded and cluttered, and it's not going in the direction that we need it to go.
Gotcha. So a lot of think it overs, a lot of eternal maybes, stuff like that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But so you see what I did there, right? I just took your value prop and I was just delivering questions back to you.
No, you were. That was good.
That's it. And I think, you can take those. So, and I love value props, right? I want to have value props, but give me 20 of those, right? And then just let me talk about the questions that lead to that. So what would it have to take for a business to need that value prop? And let's ask them those questions, right? And let's ask it in a way to where they can't just say no.
They have to explain it.
They have to explain it.
So I would say we all need to consider objections more open-ended questions and more just like a yes or no question.
Yep, absolutely. Right. So, I mean, even the simple things like budget, right? Everyone wants to say, hey, we don't have budget for this until Q3, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, what was the Gartner study that said something like 67% of B2B purchases last year did not have budget in that calendar year, right? So that's one thing you could throw out there. So that's Gartner or whatever, right? But what is the value that you can bring to them and get that out of the gate early? So, hey, I understand most people don't have budget for this. Can I show you a couple of reasons that X, Y, and Z might be true to you? Right? They may say no again, right? And that's when I'm going to start to go negative on them. So I said, okay, if you probably have no reason to do, like I said, value or pipeline acceleration, you probably have no reason to get in front of people who haven't been to your website. You probably have no reason, right? And I'm going negative because it's just like magnets, right? If I go negative, they go positive.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I've never actually thought of it that way, to provide like, oh yeah, you actually don't need that. And I think it more so does it more a psychological thing to be like, wait, actually I do. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, it's all psychological. Yeah, we get a little bit of feedback, but it's all psychological. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it out there. I'm going to put it out there for you, but then I'm going to take it away from you, right? So, hey, you probably don't need this. And then when they say, yeah, I actually do, all I say is, what do you mean? I let them explain it. I let them go further with me.
Yeah, and I think that's super important to understand that, and I think it's definitely a process. So let's go into like another objection, right? This is something that we talked about in person. When someone says, I'm in a meeting, I think it's the infamous one. How do you handle that?
Well, you're talking about on just a cold outreach?
Yeah, cold outreach. They're like, hey, I'm in a meeting. I can't talk.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to steal yours and just say, no, you're not. Either you are the rudest person in the world, or you're lying to me. So which one is it? I'm going to steal yours from now on that one. But but no, seriously. I mean, look, if someone's telling you they're in a meeting, I'm asking, my bad. Why did you pick up the phone while you were in a meeting? So especially from a random stranger. So that's kind of a BS excuse.
Yeah, it really is. And I think people are, you think that even further, right? And we talk about this is like the challenge of actually telling someone, hey, this is how it is. Do you think we actually, and this is something I've talked about, do we get too caught up in the titles of talking to someone that we feel like we can't challenge that individual when they're just straight up lying?
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the biggest things that I teach is equal business stature, right? So you have to understand equal business stature, which means you are on the same playing field as they are. Their time is valuable, but guess what? So is your time, right? And unless you treat that as such, you're never going to have the courage or the confidence to reach out to somebody who maybe has a higher title to you and have a conversation with them. It's critical that you be able to do that.
I think it's like far none. It's something that we all should be considering. I think it's more so like if I can bring value to your business, then like the title shouldn't be there. So how can you talked about the equal opportunity, but how can you get over that as an SDR? You're coming into the role, you're trying to provide value, but you feel like, you're getting hit hard with objections. Is it my whole belief, how I see it, I want to hear your thoughts, is that like, I'm just going to keep calling until I understand how to handle these objections? Or do you feel like before they should do enough studying to basically handle those objections before they get you on the phone?
Well, so look, again, I think you can practice those objections in a friendly fire environment first, right? So look, I spent 4 years in the Marine Corps. The first thing that we go do is learn how to fire our weapon in perfect conditions, right? So it's the same thing with a new SDR cold calling. Let them handle those objections in a friendly fire environment before you just go throw them out there, in front of the enemy and getting shot at. Now, I'm not comparing cold calling to fighting in wars by any stretch of the imagination, but it's true. How we practice is how we perform. And I think it's very important that we get that practice before we go in. Now, that being said, I'm not a fan of doing a ton of research before picking up the phone and calling, because you get into analysis paralysis and all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't have all the perfect information. I don't know everything about this person. I don't know everything about their company. So therefore I can't call. That's bullshit. I don't know if we're allowed to cuss on the show, but that's BS, right? But that's just absolute BS. And look, just pick up the phone. You're not going to understand how to deal with that call until you actually get it, right? So same thing. I've got my Kentucky shirt on here. It's March. It's time for March Madness. Kentucky's going to hang banner number 9 this year. But why am I even bringing that up? So you can practice all day long, and you can see a zone defense, or you can see a full court press from your own team. But until you go play Syracuse and you play their zone defense, or you go back to something like that, you don't know how to actually do it in the game. So you have to be able to get both.
Yeah, and I think that's really big. And so kind of touch on when you're handling objections, you're doing the cold call, the training. Is it better to do it peer-to-peer, peer-to-manager, someone outside of the organization? What do you feel like is best to handle these objections and actually become a master of it?
Yeah, so I think it's all three. Number one is peer-to-peer, right? That's your entry level, because we're going to feel the most comfortable. These are the people that you're eating lunch with on a daily basis. Maybe you're drinking beer with after the workday, right? They're also the people in the trenches with you, right? So they understand the fear that you probably have. Then you're doing it with your manager, right? They should be able to quote unquote certify you to get you to that next step of where you want to be. But then when you're ready to actually do the real show, let's bring in some senior leadership in the company. Let's bring in the CEO. Let's bring in someone you don't get to see on a daily basis, because that's where your real fear and your real adrenaline is going to sink in before you leave the confines, the friendly confines of your building.
I love it. I love that answer. And that's something that we do here. We have the certification process when you first start for cold calling. And then we also have peer-to-peer cold calling as well to show you can get better. So I agree with that. And kind of go into the next part. You talked about the fear. So I feel like fear is a part of it. We touched on it a couple of times. But how do you actually get over that fear? How do you develop the actual audacity or the self-confidence to actually say these questions and overcome these objections? Because you could know, but you could also just be afraid to even talk about this.
Yeah. So not only do I do sales training, but I also do just a lot of talks to college kids and even high school kids. And I end all of my talks with them with two things. One, we're all in sales, right? The two biggest pieces of advice I have. Number one is we're all in sales. No matter what profession you're actually in, you're a salesperson, whether you're selling your ideas to a coworker, whether you're selling your ideas to a boss or manager, or whether you're actually selling a product or service to someone else, we're all in sales. And number two is you will never get anything in life that you don't ask for. Right. And it's so true. Right. So my wife and I, we've done very well for ourselves, but she will still go to a restaurant or go to a store and ask for something for free. And it just irritates the hell out of me because we're fine. We can afford it. But she gets it. They give it to her for free. And I just don't understand it. So I'm like, you go with it. Right. But so give you a real example. You're about to buy a big screen TV at Best Buy for the upcoming March Madness tournament, right? You see the TV's $900. You walk up to them, you totally plan on buying it for $900, and you just ask, hey, I'll give you $700 for that TV. What's the worst thing they can say?
No.
And you end up buying it for $900, which you were already planned on doing, right?
Exactly.
Or you get it for $700 and you just save $200. Now you can go buy all the beer and snacks for the tournament to go with that awesome TV, right? It's the same thing in sales, right? You're calling up people you've never met in your entire life. And the reality is you will probably never meet them in your entire life. So if they tell you no, if they reject you, if they talk bad about you, it doesn't matter, right? It just doesn't matter. And so I know it's hard and I know it's easy for someone who's been doing this for 15 years to sit and say that. But the sooner you just realize that what you do doesn't matter. There's a quote, I would love to pull it up on command for you, but it's talked about monkeys on a spinning rock. And it said, when you think about this whole thing we call life and just putting things into perspective, we are monkeys on the third rock that orbits around the sun in this vast universe that may actually have other universes, right? And the amount of time we're going to be on this earth is maybe 70 to 80 years. And so when you just look at that tiny blip in time, like, what do you know about the Mayans? Do you know anything about the Mayans?
I mean, I know they were an ancient civilization. They were very advanced for their time.
That's it. But so, what is it? 5, 6, 7, 800 years ago? I don't even know when it was, right? But that's all we know about the Mayans today.
Yeah.
People are going to forget about you. People are going to forget about us. You don't matter. Get over yourself. Make the call, send the email, answer the objection. If you mess up, oh well.
I love it. And this is something that I definitely have touched on. And when we were talking in Atlanta, as like I said over and over again, the Phil's like, I just do not care. And I think a year in, I just don't. I mean, I think I've had that a little bit before I started, and that's kind of the reason why I've had the certain success is that, no matter 1 year, 5, 10, 15 years, the sooner that you can realize that, like, yo, I just really don't care, and like I'm not going to emotionally be wrapped into this, and that like I have the audacity to say the things I can say, then your objections are going to become better. Because the objections that I say are completely outlandish, but they work because they are outlandish, and no one is doing them. They're not common overcoming objections because it's confidence, it's because I really don't care. It's a lot of things that pull into it. So I think as salespeople, we have to get over ourselves and not thinking ourselves on a highly spotlight, and realizing that the things that we say don't have to. We could say certain things and actually get to the point of it, and not have to tiptoe and all these things.
You've talked to me about the things that you say on the very beginning of a call, right? So, hey, what did I catch you in the middle of, right? And you've given me several of those, and I love it, right? It's a pattern interrupt. What you're doing is you're interrupting the pattern of every other salesperson out there that sucks at their job. And when you do that, people are like, whoa, you kind of caught me off guard. Wait, what did you say your name was, right? And now they're opening up the door to you, right? So yes, be authentic, but don't be like everyone else.
Yeah, and I think that goes into even the topic, like how to master the objections. That in order to be a master, you have to try things, right? You have to implement new things. You have to be able to try new processes, A/B test. And I think that's the only way you can really master it. So if you only know one way to handle objections, then you're not going to really become a master. You just know how to do that one way. So if that doesn't work, you crumble, you get emotional, and you're upset.
Well, look, and if you're afraid to pick up the phone, which again, you got to get over that. You just got to pick up the phone. But start with email, right? So start putting the objection in the subject line, right? It's an idea, right? Or send your subject line, and then your first line of the email is the objection you're going to have. So, hey, Morgan, you probably are going to tell me X, Y, and Z, but if you do that, can I tell you about ABC, right? just try these things and see what gets people to hook. Again, it's that emotional response that you're trying to get at. So if you take the objection away from them, they don't have the opportunity to give it to you.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And I think that the more you can master overcoming objections over time, the better you'll be. Like at the beginning, I didn't really have good objections, but I was always willing to push back. And I would get run over, but I was cool with it because I know eventually, like, all right, I'm just going to be able to handle whatever happens to me, and I'm going to have some type of response that's just going to like throw them off their rocker. So at least with objections, you can kind of hop into this. My question to you is, what are you doing to help yourself master objections every single day? And then my answer to that, I'll go ahead and answer, is that like I just made sure I was going to come up with something that was broke the pattern, which that's just my life, is just breaking patterns. But I wanted to break the pattern to where they either laughed or they felt uncomfortable and they felt like they had to have a conversation with me. So I want to hear your answer to that.
It's the exact same, literally. And what I mean by that is, look, I spend my day selling to salespeople as well as delivering sales training, right? But when I'm selling to salespeople and sales managers, I know what objections they're going to give me. And what I do is I force them to get uncomfortable or laugh and have a conversation with me. I do it by way of questions. So as soon as you give me an objection, any objection, I have multiple different ways I'm just going to ask that question back to you. Number one is, tell me more. Or, hey, Morgan, I heard what you just said, but you're going to have to help me out. I don't really understand what you mean. Right. So I literally just disarmed a objection with a question saying, tell me more about what you're talking about. I just don't understand. Right now, could that go awry? Yeah, absolutely. Jim, I just told you I don't have any money. What more do you need? Like, that's the objection. Well, but when you say you don't have any money, like, do you like literally mean your company doesn't have any money? Like, how are they making payroll next week?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to better understand, because the last time, hey, Morgan, the last time someone told me they didn't have budget, can I tell you what they told me?
They probably gave you some lame excuse.
I'm asking it as a kind of like a question back to you. It's like, I want to tell you a third-party story. Hey, can I tell you about how we handled the situation the last time someone told me they didn't have any budget? Or can I tell you what happened the last time someone told me they had to have the board approval for this signature? I don't know if it make any sense, but can I tell you that story? Right. And just getting them to be like, okay, you know what? This person is not going away. All right. Yeah. Let's have this conversation. Let's go down it. That's all we're trying to do. Right. So the biggest thing, with the cold outreach, we're not trying to sell our product or service. All we're trying to sell is a meeting. Right. And too often, a lot of salespeople are like, well, or SDRs, they want to sell the whole damn product. And you're not going to do that. If you've never had a one call close, it's not going to happen this time. Right. So sell the meeting and let the meeting sell the product. It's critical.
Yeah, I think, and I'm with you. I think people try to, and this is something I have to tell my reps, is that they want to go into like 20, 30-minute conversations. I was like, what are you doing? you could have like 20 other conversations. You're talking to someone for 20, 30 minutes. And if you don't get the meeting, then it's like, what were you doing? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what in the world? So I think it's yes,
Well, my whole thing too is, so when I do my own cold outreach, right, it's a pattern, right? I have my own kind of script, but first thing I say, hey, Morgan, Jim Brown, Sandler sales training, name probably doesn't ring a bell. No reason it should. Hey, I'm going to take 30 seconds of your time. At the end of this, you tell me if we should keep talking. Right now, that's it. They can tell me no, right? They can say, yeah, okay, it's only 30 minutes. That's fair. And then I can go on with what I want to talk about. Now, they might say, like you talked about earlier, hey, I'm in a meeting, or hey, I'm busy, or hey, great. If that's the case, I'm only going to take 30 seconds of your time. Right. But my whole goal with that 30 seconds that I'm going to get is to break script. I have the things that I want to kind of get through, the questions I want to ask, but I want to break script. I want to get them into a conversation. But as soon as I get them into a conversation, I want to immediately transfer that to time on the calendar so that we can have a full conversation. Because look, I said, hey, Morgan, I only asked you for 30 seconds of your time, and I want to be cognizant of that. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and schedule a 30-minute call next Tuesday at 6 or at 5 p.m. or whatever it is?
Yeah. And that's crucial. I mean, what you just did there was really crucial. So, Jim, you provided a ton of value on mastering objections. I feel like there's a lot of value here for SDRs. So, gonna wrap this up with the final question I ask every single guest that comes on the show. What's the one piece of advice that you give to an SDR as they enter into a new SDR role?
You know what? It's going to go be the same thing I say to all the college students that I talk to, right? Is like, you're never going to get anything in life that you don't ask for. And the SDR role is all about asking people for 30 minutes on their calendar every single day. So start asking and you will start getting yeses eventually.
No, I couldn't agree more with that statement. Very short, but it's actually that simple.
It really is, right? So I could have given you some confounded, 2 or 3 minute ramble, but that's it. You will never get anything in life that you don't ask for. So start asking.
Yep. Ask more, handle objections better, master the objections. Guys, that's what we learned today from about Jim Brown. This was awesome. I enjoyed it. And as I always say, guys, keep dialing, and I'll see you guys soon.